It is my great pleasure to introduce someone who I regard both as a friend, a sister, and someone who I have watched guide and direct the Institute of Noetic Sciences with fresh eyes, increased enthusiasm, and incredible courage. Cassandra Vieten has been at IONS for 14 years, and she's starting her third year as president and CEO. She is the seventh and the youngest president of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. She is also a wonderful mother, a good friend, and a raving beauty. Please, Cassie.
Thank you, Tish. Well, it's such a privilege always to be on stage with Tish because some of you know this story. When I was 18, my mind was just beginning to be open to some of these noetic topics, and I was fascinated. And I had my first job, so I had my first tax return check, my first tax refund, and I got it in the mail. It was $300. And so I lifted up the envelope, and underneath that was an advertisement for something at the University of Creation Spirituality in Oakland, where Louisa Tish, Starhawk, Matthew Fox, Brian Swim, Jeremy Taylor, all these people were teaching. How much did it cost? $300. So I just turned that check right around and sent it out, got on the plane, my first time to the Bay Area, went to a week long with all of these people, learning from Tish, and I said, I found my people, and I found what I want to do with the rest of my life. So 27 years later, I am here with Tish on stage, and it's just such an honor. And it's an honor to be here with all of you. How y'all doing so far? I want to start with some thank yous, and I first want to thank the dedicated and amazing staff of the Institute of Noetic Sciences who have been working tirelessly for the past 6 months from California to put this together in Chicago. I'm really grateful for who I work with every single day, and please take the time to stop and talk to the folks that have the little black staff tag. Give them your thanks and tell them how much you appreciate them. I also want to thank our good friends and conference co-organizers and co-sponsors, the Green Heart organization. And if you don't know much about Green Heart, I encourage you to learn about it. It's based here in Chicago, but every year it places 10,000 students in 85 countries as part of their cultural exchange program. But not only do they just do this cultural exchange program, they are building tomorrow's leaders through transformative work, and they approached the Institute of Noetic Sciences just a few years ago and said, we love what you're doing and we want to integrate it into our programs, and now we've become close friends and partners, and we just love them. Emmanuel is the head of Green Heart. You're going to have a lot of opportunity to learn more about them and go shopping in their fair trade shop. They're amazing people. And then the Fetzer Institute is our other global co-sponsor, and the Fetzer Institute has been around for a long time. It's been a close friend of IONS for many, many years, and they are doing excellent work over decades to make love and forgiveness central to our planet. So thank you, Fetzer Institute. But most of all, I want to thank you, every single one of you who took the time and energy, resources to get on a plane or a bus or a train or a car or a cab to get here. You have, by coming here, not only done something for yourself, you've done something for this community over this weekend, and now that you're in this room, you're an essential part of what's going to happen here. And you just won't believe who's in the room with you. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. It's an extraordinary crowd. But people ask me who are new to IONS, well, what kind of people are IONS people? And it's almost impossible to describe. IONS people can't really be put in a box. You know, we don't follow any specific doctrine or teacher. We don't have a dogma. We don't have a, specific lineage. We're not teaching you something that we need you to know. We're not necessarily carrying the good news or a big, hard message. So the kinds of people who come to us, I took a crack at trying to describe them. They're paradoxes. They're people who are full of deep conviction and passion for their beliefs, and they are open-minded to new possibilities. They're people who understand what's true and what's not true in the very bones of their being, but they also understand that things are not black and white, and they like to dance in the gray areas. They're loving and soft and gentle and fierce and passionate. They tell the truth, and they hold on to that truth lightly, knowing that if new information becomes available, they are ready to revise that truth. People here at IONS make the paranormal normal. Okay, and so because there are so many extraordinary people here, I really want you to take to heart the letter I put into that opening on-site program that you have in front of you, to not only attend the lectures and go to the shops and do the workshops, but to be curious and savor every moment and explore every nook and cranny. Go into the places where you wouldn't usually go. Talk to the people you wouldn't usually talk to. One of the things that we are teaching in terms of how to live deeply is if something feels unfamiliar to you, or it's something you don't have a natural affinity for, get closer to it. Approach it. Find out more about it, and find out more about each other. Take the time to talk to each other. That is one of the most interesting parts of this conference. We've got all these amazing speakers, but the person sitting next to you might be the most important teacher you meet all weekend. So I want you to spend breakfast together. You can, like Edgar, have an epiphany. You could have breakfast at Epiphanies. These eggs are amazing! It's a caffeine miracle. Now I get hash browns. You could have epiphanies all throughout this weekend if you open your heart and open your mind to them. So take a minute now, turn to the person next to you, maybe someone that you don't know, and share quickly with each other, what is one thing you wouldn't know about me just by looking at me? Go ahead. This is what is always interesting about our IONS community. They're so shy and awkward and withdrawn. Okay. Let's come back. I love the IONS community. You should hear the symphony of conversation and laughter and beauty and sharing that I hear up here. It's great. Wonderful. Yes, so as I was saying earlier, the IONS community is so shy and withdrawn. They really have trouble sharing with each other. So try to come out of your shells a little bit this weekend, please. Okay, so, aside from the amazing person you just met next to you, the other kinds of people you are going to meet this weekend are representative of thousands of people all over the world who are part of the IONS community. And some examples are, it's just amazing. You're sitting in the room now with someone who was the co-inventor of the first microprocessor, which is now in every single computer on the planet. You're sitting in the room with the co-founder of Pixar Animation Studios, a 2-time Academy Award winner who has now decided to spend his life inventing ways to study the effect of consciousness on matter. You're sitting in the room now with a young woman who is 22 years old who started the first IONS community group in the deep south of Mississippi and said to us last night, I was the weird one in my town, and I started this group, and I got all the weird ones, and now they're telling me this group is saving their lives. You're going to hear from a woman who was a teenager in a war-torn country, ended up in a bomb shelter and being asked to read stories to the children as the shells were going off outside, and now is spending her life creating a new story for humanity and the planet. And every person in this room is like that in so many ways. You've got people in here who have given birth and who have lost children. You've got people who have started multinational NGOs and people who transformed their local PTA. Every single person in this room has an extraordinary story. So please find out about each other, and we can't wait to find out about you. Some of you may know that we have recently had this I Am IONS campaign where all of our people started telling their stories. There are 16 vignettes online, and you can go online and record your own video and your own story, and we would like for every single one of you to do that so we can start to learn about who's in this community. So what are we here doing? What are we all about? What is the Institute of Noetic Sciences dedicated to? Fostering a global shift in consciousness that will make this planet more sustainable, that will make our society just and fair, and make an environment of thriving for every being on the planet, and maybe in the universe. We want to foster a shift in consciousness, especially that recognizes, number one, that the mind matters. What I think, what I believe, my intention, my dreams, my imagination, my attention, my awareness. It makes a difference in my own body, in my relationships with other people, locally and at a distance, and it may even have an influence on the physical world itself. That internal world is at least as important, if not more so, than the external world, and yet it has been diminished somewhat in our society's institutions of education and healthcare and business. What's out here has seemed to be more important than what's in here, and the interaction between the two. We've only barely started to scratch the surface of how the inner world dances with the outer world and how we can harness that dance to make things better for everyone. The second is that science and spirituality are two ways of knowing our universe, our human potential, the nature of reality, but they're not contradictory. They're actually complementary. And in fact, it may be at the nexus of the two that we find solutions to problems that have plagued us for millennia. We think at this point, it may have been necessary at one point in time to separate the natural world and the spiritual world, and allow the religions to explore the spiritual world, allow science to do the natural world. Now we are mature enough as a human species to bring these back together and to heal that rift. The third part is that we are essentially interconnected with every other aspect of the universe. Everything on our planet is interdependent. This is becoming increasingly clear over time. That vision that we first had when everybody was watching on their TV screens to see the Earth from space for the first time, and then when Edgar had that experience of interconnectedness, now science and physics and astronomy, it's telling us that this isn't just a nice metaphor. This is literally true. We are a whole. And the more people directly experience that and have scientific evidence to back it up, the more they'll feel inspired to take action to help humanity and the planet thrive. Once you've had that realization, it is very difficult to engage in behaviors that harm others while benefiting oneself. Once you've had this realization, there's a natural upswelling of wanting to help everyone on the planet and enthusiastically share our resources. So we are here to write this new story. And how are we going to do it? Well, if you look at the most fundamental game-changing, life-enhancing paradigm shifts of the last centuries, they've required 4 things. The first was a direct experience. Someone or a small group of people made an observation that something was true that was different than what they had been told was true. They made an observation and experienced it themselves that something new, something different, something was wanting to evolve or emerge or to be learned. Let's think about, for example, the discovery of electricity. It's not that we invented it. It was there. We just discovered it. And at some point, people started to say, wait a second, I think there's an energy source here, and I think it could possibly help us. The second is the external knowing, scientific evidence, exploration. People start to look at it and say, well, you had that observation of that new thing, but is it really true? Let's try to measure it. Let's try to capture it. Let's try to harness it. Let's try to enhance it. So the scientific effort moves in to confirm and expand the new understanding. The third is people are provided with ways of applying that new knowledge in their everyday lives. So you could have a direct experience of awakening, you could have it confirmed through some scientific evidence, but if you have no way to apply it in your everyday life, it's not going to make as much of a difference. So tools and technologies and curricula and ways that you can infuse the new understanding into every aspect of your life. And finally, and maybe the most important, a growing community of people who lived into the new way of being until it became the new norm. That's what we're about here at the Institute of Noetic Sciences: direct experience, frontier science, real-world applications, and you, a global community of people who are supporting each other into living into a new way of being. So the way we do this is the science you're going to hear about this weekend. We focus at the Institute of Noetic Sciences on the science of extended human capacities. In other words, what are we capable of that we may have been told or taught was impossible, but that we have, most of us, experienced at one time or another in our lives, like connection to another person at a distance, or knowing something without knowing how you knew it, knowing who was calling on the other end of the phone, or being able to feel healed by an energy source of some kind. We are looking scientifically into these extended human capacities, and I'm proud to say that since the last time I talked to you 2 years ago, we have doubled our scientific team to 7 scientists, 4 scientific fellows, and there is no other research institute in the world that is studying frontier topics in consciousness research that has this critical mass of expertise and world-class skills. We're looking at what we're capable of. We're looking at consciousness and healing. We're looking at how do people experience deep transformations in consciousness that change everything about how they view the world so that their life becomes oriented around service, love, forgiveness, and all of these values that are so important to us. We also then take what we learn through our scientific research and translate it into transformative education programs. So these are those tools and technologies I mentioned before, ways to apply it in your everyday life. We have 8 educational programs, including mindful motherhood for young parents, worldview explorations for children, living deeply for adults, conscious aging for elders, spiritual competencies, and you'll learn a lot more about these over this weekend, but there are a variety of tools that I hope you will either use in your own life, or even better, you'll receive a way of taking it into your neighborhoods and communities and workplaces. They're very simple in a way. They're really just infusing consciousness and awareness into every arena of life. Sometimes I like to say one of our missions is to re-enchant the world, to reintroduce the magic that has been sort of pulled out of our everyday lives, to find ways to put it back in. We support a community of explorers worldwide. We have 70,000 or more online folks, 5,000 members, 150 regional community groups that meet all over the world. About 55 of the leaders of those groups are here, so I invite you to meet them. And if you don't have a community group in your local area, consider starting one. It's a really great program. And finally, our 200-acre campus in Northern California sees about 5,000 people a year for transformative work. And so you can see this model, direct experience, science, application, community. You're going to feel that all throughout this weekend because we've designed the conference to have basically equal parts of each. I'm excited about this stuff. So again, I invite you to open your heart, open your mind, open your being to what you might experience this weekend. We're so glad you're here. Find each other. Support one another. One of the things that is so inspiring to me about the IONS conference is that very often there are people who attend who are the only person in their community or their workplace who feels any of this stuff. And this is the place where they can come and be completely out of the closet about all the parts of themselves. And that's what brought me here. This is my home. This is why I'm here, that every aspect of my being, of your being, is appreciated and valued, and it's okay to be vulnerable and to share and to be sad and to be happy and to be goofy. Let yourself be all that. My daughter is 14 years old, and she went to a camp last week that was led by Charlie Murphy and Peggy Taylor, The Power of Hope. And I picked her up afterwards. There was no cell phone, no computer. I think it was harder on me than her. I couldn't talk to her for a week. I said, well, how'd it go? This is a transformational program, kind of like some of our programs. And she said, everything's different. Mom, there were no cliques there. There was no difference between anybody. Everyone, I felt loved. I felt accepted. There was just nothing in between us. So let's do that here too. What really keeps me going every day is envisioning a future world where these kinds of practices, these insights that we're going to be talking about all weekend, this level of love and openness and vulnerability is included in, let's say, that it would be unthinkable to go to a healthcare encounter and receive recommendations for drugs or surgery without also having your healthcare practitioner say, what is the meaning of your illness to you? And let me tell you about my intention for your healing. How many of you, when you went to school, kindergarten through 12th grade, had a course in how to access your deepest intuition and your deep knowing, and to follow those gut instincts while equally paying attention to your logic and your scientific knowing. How many of you had 1 hour of training in that in your entire education? I do this because we envision a world where education is not just reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's not just what you know, it's how you know it. It's not just how to count, it's what counts. And we can make this happen. I'm envisioning a world, and this is very meaningful to me, it moves me, where we do not put people in our society who are desperate enough to have to steal and hit into cages. We can take a person to the moon. We can travel for 9.5 years and 3 billion miles to see Pluto. We can come up with better solutions to deal with people who are desperate and need help. We're building a science center on campus, and one of the things that I envision in the future is imagine that we have scientists working using the same rigorous methods of science that we've used for medical research and drug development and weaponry, but these will be about energy and healing and awareness and consciousness. And when our scientists run into a roadblock, they can walk around the corner, talk to someone like Tish, and say, could we have a little conversation with the spirits about this problem that I can't get over in my test tubes? How would it be if we really brought together the inner world and the outer world? That's what we're all about here. And again, we're not about a message, we're about a question. We're about an exploration. We're about an adventure. So thank you again for taking the time and energy and money and resources to come here and join us in this exploration. I'm looking forward to meeting as many of you as I possibly can, and blessings to everyone.